Welcome to the journey of an awakening spirit with your host, Kathleen Flanagan. The journey of an awakening spirit is about teaching you a variety of tools that you can use to step into your true self. It is about self-discovery, realizing you are not alone on your journey. We will open the phone lines, give readings, and talk about what our listeners want to know. So please welcome the host of the journey of an awakening spirit, Kathleen Flanagan.
Hi everyone, and welcome to the Journey of an Awakening Spirit. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. And as you can tell, I'm back on the road. I'm back in Riverton. Hopefully this is the last week that I should be up here to finish out a good portion of the project that we're doing. And today I wanted to talk about establishing healthy boundaries. And when I was looking at my notes yesterday, the one thing that came up that I want to share with you, because this really made a lot of sense, especially when we struggle with boundaries. And pretty much homeowners put up fences, and this often discourages intruders from entering or destroying the land and your home. And since this practice is seen in all cultures and in history, fencing your property is a great way to ensure that people don't damage or intrude your home. So if you're willing to protect your physical property by putting up fences, then why are you not willing to put up boundaries for yourself? Boundaries are invisible fences for your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. And if you do not set up boundaries, people can easily infringe on your rights and make you feel disrespected. And when I read this, I was just really surprised, because I never really looked at it quite that way when we're establishing boundaries, because we think that if we say we establish a boundary, we're asking people to, we're going to say no, are we worthy, are we deserving? And boundaries set you free, and it actually creates your relationships a lot better. So as I said, they are definitely invisible imaginary lines that we create. And it's imperative to have them because they do establish healthy relationships that are both beneficial to you and the other person. And we need boundaries because this allows you to be your most authentic self. So if you have boundaries established, then people understand who you are and what you expect from them. And it's the same when they establish boundaries for you. And then it's also good for self-care, because a lot of times we have a tendency to not take care of ourselves because we're so busy trying to, especially for people pleasers, we're worried about the family, our spouses, our partners, the kids, whatever it is, and we don't take time for self-care. And boundaries are really good for that, where you have to use discipline to take care of yourself, that you're getting plenty of rest, that you're eating properly, that you're drinking enough fluids throughout the day, and that you are energized and not depleted. Boundaries also set realistic expectation with clear directions. And I know that when I started setting boundaries, and this is usually the hardest, is when you first start, because it's something new and different for you. But what I discovered, that when I established boundaries and I informed the people of how it was going to be in the future with respect to protecting my space, yes, it's met with a little bit of opposition, but once people understand that they can't walk all over you, it just starts making things different, and you start feeling more empowered as well. And the boundaries will also protect you both emotionally and physically. And this can go, like, if you're in a relationship where there's physical abuse, and if you don't have a boundary set up, then if your partner wants to beat you up and you stay, then where are your boundaries? And that just shows a lack of respect. And I know that, and we're going to talk about this, especially in a little bit further, but in relationships, with a lot of times when we establish relationships, especially with a romantic partner, what we want to do is we establish boundaries. And that's the one thing that I always did in my relationships with when I met men that I was thinking that I'd be interested in wanting to be with, is I established boundaries and said, I don't tolerate cheating. That's one thing. It's like, I will leave. It's like, if you want to leave the relationship, just say so, and I will walk, and I will do that. I mean, that is a very clear, definite boundary that I have, and I don't allow men to hit me. And those were like some of the things, aside from other things, but those were probably the two biggest ones that I always established in any relationship. And with my ex-husband, I know that one time he thought of hitting me, and it was like, it'd be the last act you ever do, because I will see your ass in jail. And I meant that with all of my being. I meant that. And he came after me, and he just hit the wall, which I didn't care if he hit the wall, but I didn't move. It was like, go ahead, just go ahead. I dare you. And then he also cheated on me at the same, years later. And that was it. I was done. It was like, he violated two, he didn't violate the one, but when he violated that one, we're done, because I actually said, I will not tolerate this. And I did not tolerate it. And that was the end of our relationship. And, regardless of the fact of how much I loved him and how hard it was to leave, I chose to do that because I respected myself enough. And that's the other thing about establishing boundaries. It's about your self-respect. I mean, you deserve to be treated with decency, kindness, and respect. You do it for other people, so you are not a doormat, and you are entitled to have those boundaries established. I mean, nobody has the right to belittle us, to shame us, to demean us in any way, shape, or form. And if you don't have boundaries set up in place, then you're giving them the free-for-all to be able to do whatever they want. And that just shows your insecurities, your lack of respect for yourself, thinking you're undeserving, and that is farthest from the truth. So, and boundaries are actually it puts you first, because you are always supposed to be first. Your family, your partner, everybody comes second to you. I mean, if you're not well and not feeling good, or you're tired, or just feeling depleted and de-energized, then that's because you haven't put yourself first. You've put everybody else in front of you. And everybody's going to keep taking from you if you don't stop it. So it's really up to you to establish boundaries. But that also requires you knowing who you are. So I know that when I first started establishing boundaries, I think I started to realize what I wanted, what made me feel good, and that I needed for myself. So I was doing a lot of soul searching when I started establishing my boundaries to say, this is what I want. This is unacceptable if this happens. And then, I've walked from a lot of people in my life a lot, because if you're going to demean me or think that I'm worthless or treat me like I'm an idiot, then leave. And I do this to my partner now. I mean, when he starts going down this rabbit hole of whatever, his dad's running his life and his speaking and that kind of thing, I'll tell him. It's like, you know where the friggin' door is. Get the hell out if you're that unhappy. And I mean it. And he knows I mean it. And then that's his wake-up call to realize he's overstepping a boundary, because it's totally up to you to stop bad behavior. And boundaries are also, they help you to feel like you have rights. I mean, because we do have rights. We have the right to be treated with decency and respect. And, like when I was telling you, because it was over the weekend that we finished cleaning out the crawl space, and finally getting that done, and it was exhausting, and there was so much mold, and I'm in a respirator, and it's just horrible, and we're both frustrated, and I understood that, and there was just this point where it was like, my God, his father's talking to me, and the next day I was like, so what's this deal about your father? I mean, obviously you treat me like I'm an idiot and I don't know what I'm doing, but I said, I know this is your dad coming through, so let's have this conversation. And we did. We had a conversation about that, because he and I are very similar. We're both the firstborn, and we work very similarly. There's so many things that we do that is almost identical as far as being a firstborn child. And how much we take on, and how much everything was our fault, and all the other kids seem to have gotten away with murder. But those days are over. And yes, we do have a lot of those limiting beliefs and those paradigms that we're still living through and walking through. But we were at least able to sit down and talk about it and work through whatever it is, because I don't want him to leave, but I'm also not willing to put up being mistreated, because I do my best not to mistreat him. And what was so funny is he was saying something about, we were in the car going to dump all this gross carpet and moldy boxes and stuff, and I just said, yes, I know you think I'm an idiot and I'm stupid and all of this, and I'm really friggin' tired of listening to it, so you just keep your friggin' mouth shut. And I was angry. I was very angry about it. And I said, and you can never diminish me to the degree that I'm doing to myself right now, because I left my keys in the ignition and I had a dead battery. And I had to go out and buy a battery. So I went down a rabbit hole of what's wrong with me? What was I thinking? When did I even do this? And I was just really beating myself up. And I mean, it was so funny. And he realized at that moment that it was time to back off, because I was so upset. And I really was very upset when I had done that, because, leaving my keys in the ignition and I have a dead battery and I had to spend $250 to buy a new battery. I mean, I was angry. And I went down the God doesn't love me place, and what did I do wrong? And I did nothing wrong. It's just, that was an old limiting paradigm belief that I had. So what I did is I regrouped myself, got back into where I needed to be. Sal backed off and we were just fine. But I was so physically exhausted, because, when we're tired, also, you have to take care of yourself. And that's what I did, is I had to take time to say, leave me alone. I need to rest. Because it was like, why do my lungs hurt? And I'm thinking, well, because you were heaving in a respirator for 2 days. Of course your lungs hurt. You're expanding your lung capacity because you're breathing through a respirator. So it was really an interesting weekend. I mean, I think that's why I'm so tired today, is because I traveled yesterday for 5 hours. And, but it was so important that I stopped moving on Sunday. It was like, I'm not doing anything. I'm just going to rest today and do whatever I felt like I needed to do, get ready for the trip, just maybe do something that was just not like, that was almost mind numbing, because I needed to take care of myself. So I did. And I felt rested. And the nice thing is that Sal was in the same position. So we both just took the time and just enjoyed being with each other. And that's what a boundary does, because he will put his boundaries up if I overstep them as well. And that's what makes this relationship work, is when we both know how far we can push, because it's like kids. Kids are the same way. When you're teaching your kids boundaries, they're going to push you until they know that you really mean it. And you need to be in that position where you mean, no, you can't do this. You can be kind, need to be assertive, but you also want to use the I statements, like, I feel this way when you do this, instead of, well, you always do this to me. And, so you're playing victim, and then they go on the defensive. So when you're saying the I statements, like when I told Sal, is there's no way you could belittle me or shame me as much as I'm doing this to myself. I mean, it's like nobody can do that kind of damage to me other than me. And I don't give anybody else permission to do it. And I have to stop doing that for myself. And on 90% of the time, I'm really good at this. But this time it was just a little bit different, because there was physical exhaustion and I had to look at the whole picture of what was happening with me. But I stood my ground and I pulled myself back. And that's part of that self-care boundary that you establish for yourself as well. Well, we're going to take a short break to hear a word from our sponsors, and I'll see you just in a few more seconds.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them, rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Kathleen Flanagan, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. So now I want to talk about how we establish or set our own personal boundaries. And it's just like anything else. It's going to be difficult, and you have to understand who you are and what you want to do. And it's going to take practice as well. And if something, because you're supposed to feel empowered when you set boundaries, not anything other than that. So, because if you're not feeling empowered, then it's an ineffective boundary, and it's something that you should change. And the nice thing about boundaries is, especially when you're working with other people, that you can work with each other on boundaries, so they don't have to be set in stone, and it's your way or the highway kind of thing. I mean, they are something that can be negotiated with you and the people that you're around, colleagues, family members, whatever. But the first step in setting a good boundary is having a firm foundation. And this foundation should be made from a healthy and appropriate mentality about boundaries. So the goal of boundaries should be a better respect for yourself and help other people to respect you as well. And then setting boundaries is not about controlling or nagging somebody else. And if they view the boundaries that way, then it might be something that you need to look into as far as changing or modifying, so it's empowering for both people. And then when you establish your boundaries, you also want to make sure what are the boundaries of the person that you're working with, so you can create those healthy relationship boundaries. So when you're defining the boundary, and once you understand who you are and where you want to begin, and asking yourself about what are your rights, what's going to make you feel good. And here's some just basic factors to consider. You want to have the right to say no without guilt. You have a right to be treated respectfully. You have a right to put your needs on par with someone else. And you have a right to accept your flaws and mistakes. And you have a right to reject other people's unreasonable expectations. So when you have those in place, then that kind of starts giving you like a sense of where you need to be and how you want to feel and be treated. And you want to identify the 10 most important values in your life, because they're based on the values of what's going to make you feel good, what's important to you in your life. And if you can't come up with 10, then if you have 5 or 3, just start somewhere. Like I said, in relationships, when I started relationships, what were the 2 that were the most important for me? You don't cheat on me, and you don't get to hit me. Those were the 2 very top ones in those. And then as the relationship grew and we understood each other a little bit better, then that was where other things came in to play. Like with my ex-husband, I mean, because in relationships, when we start something new with a relationship, we're all smitten and we're infatuated and we're feeling good and happy and joyful, and we just want to spend all of our time with that person. But you don't want to do that. You actually want to make sure that you're taking time out, even if it's just like one day a week, to spend with friends or family or whatever, because you need to establish boundaries, and you don't get to know who you are or how you're really feeling inside the relationship if you're with somebody 24/7. And I know with my ex-husband, because this was a lot when I was really probably at the very precipice of setting boundaries. And then of course they grew and I changed them as I went through life further. But what I did was that we had time away because I needed to see how I felt. I mean, I knew how, like, I was like so in this whirlwind is what it felt like with him, because it was like we were connected. I knew who he was. I understood our past lives together. I mean, there was this connection that was just whoa, and the whole bit, but I didn't know how I felt because of the whirlwind that we were in. So every time I stepped back, I was able to decide if I really wanted to be with him, if I liked being with him, if we were working through things, if there was something that was bothering me, then I had the opportunity to say something. And that's what you want to do when you first start a relationship, is you need to step back. You need to talk to people. You need to just kind of have another part of your life. Because if you get married, then you start getting sucked into the relationship, and then you forget about you and your me time. And that was another thing. Like, my ex-husband was very, very jealous. I mean, it made me crazy. He was so jealous. And it got to be out of control. And I knew he was a jealous guy, but I didn't know to the extent of his jealousy until after we got married. And I couldn't cope with it. And that was one of the reasons why we got divorced, because he kept saying, well, you're cheating on me. And I'm like, I'm not cheating on you. And then I realized, if you keep pointing the finger at me that I'm cheating on you, then it's got to be the other way around. And as soon as I said that, boy, everything shifted, and we ended up divorced because of it, because he was the one who was cheating. But if I didn't stop and get away from him, or if he wanted to go visit his parents up in Walden, Colorado, then he would go up and I could sit back and reflect on the relationship, and is it working? Do we need to work on something? What do we need to do? And those were the things, because the other thing was he was an alcoholic as well. And I don't think I realized how bad it was until we were in the relationship. And I just remember talking to him, because my father's an alcoholic. And so alcohol is a really big deal for me. It's huge for me. And I told him, because he said, I don't have a drinking problem. And what I had done to prove a point was I started Xing on the calendar every time he had a drink. And I think it was 2 days out of the month he didn't drink. And he was really angry at me about that. I didn't care, because it was also his wake-up call to realize he does have a drinking problem. Now, that wasn't an easy thing to do, but it was a way that I wanted to get a point across. And so when you're in relationships, it's so critical that you still have your me time, that you can do the things that you want to do, the hobbies or start a business or whatever it is. You want to make sure that you still have the time for you, that you're not getting lost in that relationship. And that's also part of your self-care, because when we set up boundaries for ourselves, it's also very challenging, because there's nobody there to hold you accountable but you. So if you're going to start an exercise program and then it's like, oh, I don't feel like doing it today, but then how do you feel about yourself if you're not going to hold yourself accountable? So those are things of those boundaries help you stay and steer your ship in the way that you want them to be steered. And then, of course, like I said earlier, is when you're enforcing them, it's just establish what you need to do. I mean, even in the work environment, that can be a very challenging place. But if they're overworking you, you have to be able to say, no, I need to balance my life a little bit more. I still need to go home. I still need to do this. And you're afraid that your career, and you could lose your money, because it's, work is so different. But you still do have to establish those boundaries, because it's actually going to make it better. And it's more like a negotiation where you're just saying, well, you're doing this and this is how I'm feeling, and I'm, whatever. And, and your boss or colleagues are going to want to work with you better because it's going to help them, and it's going to make the team, be better. Because if you're just taking everything on and everyone thinks you can handle it, and you're just getting dumped on and you're feeling like crap, that's not serving you. So establishing boundaries at work is important. And the thing is it's a little harder, but it's also probably better and more rewarding, because everybody wants to be able to feel respected, and you want your job to be good, and you want it to be fulfilling, because we spend so much of our time there. And then also when it comes to your children, the one thing you want to do is, if you need your mommy time, you tell them this is mommy time, and you enforce it. And and in the beginning, they're going to test you, of course, because that's what children do. But after a while, once they should know what it is and they don't, then, you're going to have to put your foot down and really establish it. The other thing, too, is also when it comes to intimate relationships, you have a right to when you want to be touched, how you want to be touched, and not be violated in any way. And there's a lot of times that abuse and sexual assault still happens inside of marriages and relationships, because, one person or the other is really wanting something where the other doesn't. And establishing that is really critical as well, because, if you're not saying it and you're just reacting, or you shut down, that can damage the relationship. And if somebody is violating you in a relationship, you need to leave. That's the bottom line. And you have to find that within yourself, with taking that time for yourself as well. And you also want to make sure that you're listening to your partners as well, because, if they have something that they need to say or share, because, I know men are not always the biggest communicators in the world, but it's really important that you understand where they're coming from as well. And I think that also helps to keep the relationship going. It keeps it safe. And, and if you and your partner are having your conversations of where you need to be, you've got the kids pretty well established there in bed, and then you have your me time with your partner, because when the family's coming in, a lot of times everybody feels chaotic. They don't feel like they're out of control. But if you're establishing boundaries with yourself, with your partner, they have theirs, and then you're teaching the children how to do it, then you have more control than having a chaotic household. And that's another cool thing about when you establish boundaries that way, is that there's an empowerment, and you're teaching your children how to have boundaries. So that way they become more respectful of adults, because, I look at some of these generations now, and it's like, do you talk to your grandmother this way? Because they have no boundaries. Nobody taught them, and they think they could do whatever they want, whenever they want. And there's it's all about me. And there's other people on the planet, and if they want to be treated with decency and respect, then that means they need to give it back too. But that's also a sign that they don't have boundaries, and they didn't learn about boundaries. So, that also helps you with your compassion and understanding, and your way of teaching somebody of what you're willing to put up with or not. And I can't tell you how many times when I really started setting up my boundaries, of how much I have utilized my boundaries in my life, because it was a game changer for me. It was a total game changer. And that the self-respect that I got, the ability that I'm allowed to say no, I don't have to say yes to everything. And I've had people push back, and people will push back. And if they're going to keep pushing you back, if they claim that they don't understand why you're doing this, because people pleasers are probably the worst, because they want you to do whatever. They want to be happy. They're so insecure about themselves, and they think as long as they're doing that, then they can manipulate you, they can control you, and that's not what you want. People aren't allowed to do things like that, as far as I'm concerned. And I speak a lot of this from personal experience. But when you're dealing with somebody who is pushing you back on your boundaries, it's up to you to stand up to them and get them to understand it. And if it's a matter of just having to explain it in a way or whatever, if they still can't get it and they're still violating your boundaries, then let them go. Because that means they have no respect for you and they have no intentions of respecting you. Just like any man or woman that hits their partner. I mean, if they're doing that, then they have no respect for you, because nobody has the right to raise a hand to anybody. And that's what I believe in. Nobody has the right to physically harm another person on a mental, emotional, spiritual, physical basis under any circumstance, because the damage that it does is it's like a lifelong journey to get rid of whatever happened. And yes, it's part of who you are. It's part of what's going to make up your character. It's part of the lesson you chose to learn. But again, if we want our world to change, people, we have to change ourselves. The world's not going to change unless we change, because we are the ones in control of this world. Not our governments, not the multi-corporations. It's us. And I think I keep seeing more and more of that, because even though it's chaotic and crazy out there and everybody seems to be disconnected and showing no signs of respect, the more I change me and what I see and how I want to live my life, the more my world changes and I'm less affected by what's going on. Well, we're going to take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. We discover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. So these are a couple of other boundaries that I think were pretty important, and I know I did these over the years, but I never really looked at that is pretty important. And one of them is financial boundaries, because a lot of times, and I've been guilty of this in my life, where you feel like you're working and working and working, and all you're doing is paying your bills, but you don't do anything nice for yourself. And then you spend money, and then you regret that you spend money because now you added to the debt. So one good thing is to set financial boundaries for yourself. And what you do is you want to stick to a budget, create a budget and stick to it, and then see as money comes in, then you have that extra few dollars or cash to go out to a movie or hang out with your friends or take that vacation that you've been wanting to do. And this is really good about only buying what you need at the time. And right now, I'm in that kind of a situation where I'm just doing what I have to do. I'm not buying anything extra, and just so I can feel like I'm back in control of my finances. Because, when you buy a new house, it's a lot of things go on in that period of time, and And so now it's just like, okay, just regroup, kind of get back on your feet, because, now I've gotten used to the new mortgage payment and all that. But it was one of those things of just, I had to really discipline myself on not, I want to do this to the house and I want to do that. I had to stop that and just say, the house is fine just the way it is. You bought the house, so you didn't have to put all this money into it right away. So, so that's a really important boundary to set for yourself, especially if you have if you want to go on that dream vacation or whatever, and what can you do? And setting financial boundaries is another one. Health boundaries are another one, where you're taking care of your physical, emotional, mental health. And, are you eating well? Are you getting enough sleep? Because again, that self-care is so critical for you. And I was talking to my VA this morning, and he's in Africa. And he said he got malaria, and you're like, malaria? And I said, it's because you're burning the candle at both ends. You need to start taking care of yourself, and go to bed at a certain time, wake up at a certain time. That's part of creating a boundary for yourself. And I'm always been really good about going to bed at a certain time and pretty much getting up every day at this certain time, because it establishes where I am, what I want to do. It gives me that opportunity of eating and doing all that, I eat more at home than I do out, because it's cheaper, and I know what I'm eating when I'm eating at home as well. And then there's the social media boundaries, because everybody is so hooked and tied into social media. And if you're one of those people that just can't stay off your phone long enough because you have to know what's going on Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, or now the new one, TikTok, you can go down a rabbit hole, and that's not any good for you either. So I know that these platforms can have timers on there, so you start taking back control of your life instead of being absorbed into social media. I know that I give myself so much time to go through social media, and I watched TikTok, and I got to the point of I can't do TikTok. I just can't do TikTok. For what I see on TikTok, it is not good for my health. I walk out of there and I'm all depressed. So I don't even deal with TikTok anymore. I'm Awakening Spirits on TikTok, but I haven't posted anything on TikTok in probably a month since I got on there. I was like, over it. And, those are things about learning about what you can handle. And that's what I do. And then also, if you're a big TV watcher, start limiting your TV watching to 1 or 2 hours, that kind of thing. So that way you're doing something more than just being like a zombie. That's all I can call it. Because sometimes, and don't get me wrong, because I've done whatever it is, where you spend a whole day, if you're exhausted, and you just spend a whole day and turn on the TV and you're a boob. And you just boob out in front of the TV. And sometimes I need to do that, and sometimes I don't. And thank God it's not a lot. But, just not getting that involved in TV, because I really do monitor how much I watch TV, and I've been doing that for years. And then, sticking to a daily schedule. I mean, that's another thing, as far as, that's why I said getting up, going to bed at a certain time, and creating that kind of a boundary where it's a routine, but not that you're going into a rut. It's just you've got a guidance system of how you want to control, how to manage your life, because this really is about managing your life. And so there are, there's 3 types of people when they're fighting resistance. Is going to be the controller. And you have to remember that when somebody is trying to control you, it's not in your best interest, and they're going to make it look like it's you, that something's wrong with you. And that's one of the people, if they're not going to stop, because a controller can be one of those physical abusive people, where they're belittling you verbally, they could be physically harming you. And those kind of controllers, like my ex-husband was very much a controller. I am too, but not like that. And I control what I want to control with myself and my life. I don't try to control other people anymore. I've found that doesn't work, so why waste my time? But, if somebody is sitting here trying to shame me and trying to control me, it's time to let them go. And those people are definitely not in my life anymore. And if somebody shows up like that, I send them on their way. And don't think that I don't feel like at times I'm controlling, but I don't think it's controlling anymore. It's that I have these boundaries established. And so it's not that I'm controlling anyone, it's that this is how I want it to be. And if I've clearly stated it and they've agreed to it, and then they violate it and they're not going to come back, let them go, because that's a control factor. Then you have your guilt trip people. These are the ones that I love the most. These just, I mean, oh God, did I deal with this a lot, is where they're just trying to put a guilt trip on and how you did this to somebody and you're hurting somebody because you did this, or poor me because you're not talking to me and you should be doing this. And, and it's like, yeah, whatever. No, that's your crap. And that's the thing, is when you establish your boundaries, you realize what is yours and what is theirs. And a guilt trip, when people are trying to guilt me because I'm not going to do whatever, it's like, whatever, go away. And I'll just say, well, I just let them flap their gums and then I just walk away from them, because I'm not going to feel guilty for having a boundary established, especially when I know that I'm doing what I need to do for myself. And if I'm in a situation where I think harm could happen to other people, then I'm going to keep them away. And with what I've had in some of my experiences, that's the best thing I can do. And I remember when I was in Chicago, this one woman really tried to guilt me on all this and shame me and everything else. And I just let her flap her gums. And then I think it was several weeks later, she comes back to me and pretty much apologized because a psychic told her to leave me alone. She said, you have no idea what she's dealing with, and she's protecting you, and you need to back off from her. And so thank you, God, and thank you, whoever the reader was, to tell her to back off. But the whole point is she wasn't respecting me enough because she doesn't respect herself. And she didn't have boundaries for herself, so therefore she was putting her stuff onto me, and I wouldn't allow it. But it made me feel better because I had no animosity, no anger, no anything. It's just like, she doesn't understand. And no matter what I was going to say at that point, it wasn't going to understand. And sometimes our boundaries are just say what you need to say and keep your mouth shut, because silence really makes people crazy. I know that for sure. My family was private. It was perfect for that when my mother died. And they're sitting here leaving all these horrible messages on my phone and just really trying to shame me, belittle me, guilt me, treat me like I was dog crap and everything else. And my feelings were hurt. Oh my God, I can't even tell you how much it hurt me. And I just kept my mouth shut, and I kept my mouth shut, and I never said a word. And my one sister's like, why should this bother you? Well, they did it to her and it bothered her. So it's like, well, now you understand that when your family is talking to you like that, and this is the death of your mother, and we're all hurting. I get that. But it was, you just dealt with it. And from my understanding is, years later, my family's still angry at me because I let everything with my mother go, and they're still harboring because they didn't win, because they were always able to get a rise out of me. And that was the one thing I wanted people to stop doing, was getting a rise out of me. And people knew how to push my buttons. And that was all because I didn't have any boundaries. And if you don't want to react to people doing things, then you need to establish those boundaries. And my business partner was huge for pushing my buttons. He's really good, but I'm really good at pushing his too. So, every now and then we just do this to each other. I don't think it's intentional. I think it's just what it is. But we're really working through that, where we're not pushing each other's boundaries, because we're both establishing our boundaries for each other and saying, please stop doing this. And then if like he doesn't want me to do certain things, then I respect that. So our relationship in business is a lot healthier and a lot stronger as a result of it. So when I say that you really want to work through your boundary issues with coworkers, it really does make a difference, because it's like we can get away with more, we can do more, we're stronger together as a team because we understand each other better. And when I'm dealing with Michael, I mean, there are times where he's a confidant on many levels. I share some of my deepest feelings about things or experiences, and vice versa. And, when you're in a very vulnerable place, you want to know that that person's not going to harm you and hurt you. And that's when you're establishing boundaries. You're allowed to go into those deeper places to where you can expose your heart or understand it, because Michael has a different perspective than I do. And sometimes I need that little bit of a shift of perspective, because some people, when you start opening your heart and talking about some really deep rooted, heartfelt stuff, they don't know how to talk, or they don't even want to deal with it, so they walk away from you. But if you have somebody who can share those things, you need to know that you're safe to do that. And I have girlfriends all over the world that I can talk to like that, because I know that they're not going to hurt me. But you need to have those confidence, and boundaries help you to establish that confidence and that safety that you need when you are sharing some of the deepest, darkest secrets and traumas of your life. So I really highly recommend looking at yourself, really learning who you are. Try things on. If you're saying, well, I think this is what be good because this is what I want to do, but if you're not feeling good or it's not working, then change it. These are yours. This is all about you and your personal growth, your personal development. This is your self-empowerment, because that's what, in order for us to regain our lives, it's about our self-empowerment. It's about that we have to learn to love ourselves. We have to accept ourselves. We're not like anybody else out there on the planet. How somebody else looks at things, sees things, feels about things is not what you do, because we're all individuals. But yet those people around you can show you a perspective that maybe you wouldn't look at. Because I know many times in my life, I would be like, no, it's like this, it's like this, it's like this. And then somebody says, well, what have you ever thought about this? And it's like, oh, well, no, it's like this is like this is. I mean, that was how I was. I was very dogmatic and this is how it's going to be. And I don't have to do that anymore, thank God, because I didn't understand myself well enough to know what it is, but I was open enough to listen to other people's perspectives of things. And when we do that, our boundaries allow us to look at other people's perspectives, because sometimes it's like, well, I kind of like what they're doing, and maybe I'll try this on and see if it works for me. And if it's working for me, then I'll keep it. If it doesn't work for me, it's like, okay, well, maybe I need to tweak it, or maybe I should just get rid of it. But sometimes that's how we start creating boundaries, is somebody we admire and watch them and observe them, and then start trying on what they're doing to see if it works for you. Well, we're going to go ahead and take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors.
What if there were a super tiny device that could diagnose the brain and is smaller than a single human hair? What if you could see inside the brain to help an epilepsy patient during surgery, or to help the fight against Parkinson's disease? Dr. Patricia Broderick is proud to announce the Broderick Probe, a biomedical and electronic breakthrough. Imagine a probe to help with the understanding and potential cure of brain-related diseases. To learn more, listen live to the Easy Sense radio show with host Dr. Broderick, Wednesdays 7 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave Media Network and TuneIn Radio. And to help support the Broderick Foundation, please go to EasySense.com and learn how, with your help, we can fight these horrific brain disorders. That's EasySense.com to learn more and help support the Broderick Foundation. Author, radio show host, and coach John M. Hawkins reveals strategies to help gain perspective, build confidence, find clarity, achieve goals. John M. Hawkins' new book, Coached to Greatness, Unlock Your Full Potential with Limitless Growth, published by iUniverse. Hawkins reveals strategies to help readers accomplish more. He believes the book can coach them to greatness. Hawkins says that the best athletes get to the top of their sport with the help of coaches, mentors, and others. He shares guidance that helps readers reflect on what motivates them. rediscover and assess their core values, philosophies, and competencies, find settings that allow them to be the most productive, and track their progress towards accomplishing goals. Listen to John Hawkins' My Strategy, Saturdays, 1 p.m. Eastern on the BBM Global Network and TuneIn Radio.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Kathleen Flanagan, your host, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. So how do you measure the success of your boundaries? And that is very easy. How do you feel? And that's really what it comes down to, is how are you feeling throughout your day? Are they working for you? Do you feel like the relationships that you've established are working to the benefit that you want them to work as? And that's how you do it. You just kind of track your moods, your feelings, your emotions through this. And sometimes you can just get a little program and just check in and see how are you feeling throughout your day. And if it's not working, then go ahead and just change whatever you need or tweak or get rid of something that isn't working for you. And it's really simple to be able to just measure your boundaries. I mean, financial boundaries is real easy. Keep a detailed record of it. With your children, it's easy to see if they're starting to follow through a little bit more on when mommy says mommy needs some time and they leave mommy alone, then that's a good sign, you know, that kind of thing. And then how deep are your relationships? You know, are they going deeper and getting stronger because of the boundaries? Like I said, with my business partner, there's a huge shift in us because we work through things a lot and we talk about things and we don't take a lot of things personal with each other anymore. And I think that's the main thing, is that it's business, it's not personal. We do have frustrations and we allow each other to have that human element to us, and we don't take everything personal, and we just sometimes we just need to vent. And if we vent, then it's okay because I'm listening, it's okay, and then we find a solution. You know, because right now here at work, I mean, at this job, there's just things that are going on that it's like, after 40 years, I don't know what to do. I have nothing in my tool belt about this. And it's like, all I can say at this point is we've done our job. We've protected ourselves. If anything happens, we are excluded from this because of this. We're protected. And we have to trust that and let it go. And because I have never been on a demo job like this, I have never seen what I see here. And it's like, it's what it is. You know, I surrender. I'm going to do the best of my ability with what I have to do, and I just keep moving forward, and that's all you can do. But it's not anything being personally violated to me. And like one of the contractors wanted to sit there and go on about, you know, somebody stealing stuff, and I said, you know, you're the one that's got shady characters working here, and theft has been a problem the whole time we've been on the job. And I said, it's not my problem, it's not my job. And I put my hands up and then tried to blame the abatement contractor. And I said, you know what? I'm not going to listen to any of this. I said, whatever the theft problem is, that is your problem to deal with. It's your problem to work it out. I don't believe that the abatement contractors, workers are doing anything because they're inside a containment the whole day. They are not out there wandering through a school, stealing whatever they can find. And I put my hands up and I walked away and I said, I'm not talking about this. Because I'm so tired of somebody who just wants to like find things. And that's when you establish boundaries, you don't have to listen to that. Because I used to listen to people, and you know, and it's like, oh God. And now it's like, no, it's like, I'm done. I'm done listening. I'm done. You want to go down a rabbit hole of something I don't even want to talk about, then that's fine. But I walk away. And I've learned to do that. And I don't feel guilty and I don't feel ashamed. I don't feel anything. I just feel like empowered. And that's what we do. That's what boundaries do. They give you that sense of empowerment. And I can't even tell you what kind of a game changer that is when you finally start feeling empowered, that you're worthy and you're deserving. Because you're never going to have what you want in your life if you don't feel worthy and deserving. And boundaries really do create that for you in ways that you've never really understood. And especially me. I mean, I had no clue what boundaries were. I didn't even fully understand them through most of my life, even though I was trying things on and throughout. And so it's really important to really take, this is a small step, but it's a big step into learning a little bit more and going deeper inside of you of, well, what matters to you? And that's how I started. What really matters to me? And what am I willing to put up with and not put up with? Because I put up with a lot of stuff from a lot of people for a lot of years, and I don't put up with any of it anymore. I just can't. It's like finally, after all these years, I finally found my mouth. And that was the one thing a lot of people said, you don't stand up for yourself at all, because I didn't think I was worthy of that. And I don't know why I understand why I've had that, why I felt like that from my childhood and stuff, but it was like, but I had to find that. I had to find that value in me. And when I started finding that value in me, nobody could ever do to me anymore what I had done or what it was. I just said, no, you don't get the right. And that was the biggest part for me, was nobody has the right to mistreat me. And nobody has the right to mistreat you. And if they do, it's your fault. And if you don't like it, then change it. And that's the bottom line. It's all about you. It's all about your mouth. And it's all about you taking care of yourself. Well, I just wanted to remind you that at awakeningspirit.com, you can, we're offering 40% discount. Just enter Brave TV. And we have the 20% at grandmasnaturalremedies.net. And then on the Kathleen Flanagan site, we are actually putting up some courses for mindset training. And I've also got an organic soap course that's getting ready to go up as well for the Awakening Spirit. And so we're kind of starting to develop more courses. And then if you wanted to have a 15-minute free consultation with me, my Candelie's on the KathleenMFlanagan.com site. So you can go there. And then next week, we're going to talk about a powerful mindset. So we're going to dive a little bit more into working through our mindset. So I wanted to say thank you so much for watching. This is the Journey of an Awakening Spirit, and we are streaming on the Bold Brave TV network. And from my heart to yours, I hope you have a fabulous week. Bye for now.
This has been the Journey of an Awakening Spirit with your host, Kathleen Flanagan. Join Kathleen each week as she will inspire and empower all those who are drawn to her to live their highest vision in the context of love and joy. Right here Tuesdays at 4 p.m. Eastern on the Bold Brave TV network.